Hey, Melanie.
Hi, Josh.
Thanks so much for joining me here. I know you as a writer, as an actor, as a curator, a host here in Calgary. Of course, you and I had the chance to work together just this past February on a show called Our Canada, Our Story, in the Martha Cohen with Action Dignity. You are also the mother of a teenage son. Anyways, which I bring up because you are adept at juggling many things at the same time. So I wanted to talk to you because you've got a particular skill and a particular ability. With that Our Canada, Our Story project, you were able to take the stories of a number of racialized youth, craft them into a cohesive show, and that's not an easy thing to do. You're not necessarily afraid of taking on big topics like inclusivity and race and Canada today, let alone Calgary and the province that we live in. So I really want to hear from you about how you see the world right now, what you see as changing and shifting, and what you're thinking about. So what are you thinking about?
Yeah, I'm hoping that there's always one of two or three ways or that people can go, and I'm hoping that our shared fragility or vulnerability within this will help us kind of navigate class and race and gender and orientation differences a little more. Speaking of adeptly, speak more adeptly and more compassionately and with more empathy. Um, we can definitely try to steer it that way. I think we have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Well, and you and I, when we had a chance to speak earlier, we're also talking about empathy and how this situation can foster that amongst us and sort of demonstrate perhaps more clearly that we are indeed social animals. I'm wondering if you can talk to us about that too.
Yeah, I think that like in our capitalist culture, I think that we look at our need for each other as kind of how you can benefit my accumulation of material goods. And I think in this sort of imposed isolation on us, we're starting to realize that it's not about somebody coming into your store, it's about someone coming into your life and having that connection. And I'm hoping that when this is over, we will remember why we went into this thing called civilization to begin with, to create better connections with each other and to share our lives with each other. So I'm hoping that's the outcome of this.
Thank you.
That we will care about each other, you know?
Yeah. Well, and two, when we had the chance to talk together earlier, you were talking about how, um, in addition to sort of empathy being able to foster empathy a little bit more, we can also look at sort of the big issues and the big challenges that are in front of us, and so often they can seem daunting, but you have an incredible ability to sort of demonstrate how the actions to sort of drive these can l- live at the local level. Yeah, I wonder if you can kind of talk about that a bit.
Some of the most vulnerable, necessary workers are often racialized. They come from poor classes. And I think that there's just an opportunity there to rethink these structures and the attention. They're essential workers. And like people who you dismiss as driving your bus or the train or working in the grocery stores are people who are putting their lives on the line. And you start to realize how dependent you are on them. And I think there's going to be a shift in how we approach people like that, especially people who are racialized as well, on top of coming from, I come from like a really working class city, my people, caretakers, people who help take care of me were, my mom was a social worker, nurses, carpenters. And there's just this understanding that people are people and you've got to respect them in not just pay lip service, but in your heart understand that these are essential workers. I think we're going to come out with a whole different perspective on things, which will distance us from sort of the dehumanizing aspects of capitalism, which turn everything into like, how can I get stuff and how much more stuff can I have?
Thanks for that. I really, really hope that is true. I hope we see that shift when we're able to come out of that. And frankly, not even when we're able to come out of that. I hope we do that today.
Well, there's always room for artists to create, here's a title, I'm going to keep it, nobody take it. I'm going to write a play called Essential Worker, because I feel like there's always room for that. And there's always room for us as artists to guide people to look at things in that way. I think there's definitely room for that.
Well, for those of us that maybe do find themselves with a little bit of time on their hands and lots of thoughts in our minds, how have you been feeding your soul? What have you been watching or reading? What can you direct our attention to?
Well, I've decided that I would read a list of books, and I'm reading detective novels. Like, I'm just starting with a genre, and I'm going to go genre to genre. But my first genre is one that I consider easy and fun, and it's detective novels. But all of the novels in my stack are by women or racialized people. So it's really interesting, because I'm the kind of person that goes to the movies and guesses the end, especially detect like race and stuff.
It's terrible. Terrible.
Yeah, it's like a horrible, like, don't go to the movies with me. But like, I used to read Agatha Christie novels when I was 11, and I would read them like one after the other, and I was really into it. And I found out that Agatha Christie's one of her books, not the first book, but the first title of one of her books was called 10 Little N-Words. And then she changed it to 10 Little Indians, and then it was changed to And Then There Were None. And that was, and I'm like, so like race, things that people think is, oh, that's, that was a bad part in our history. It permeates so much of our collective cultural experience and identity in ways that we don't really know, from tipping to they sold me down the river. You say someone sold you down the river, you're referencing a whole thing, you're referencing slavery. It's incredible. So I'm reading, the first book I read was by a woman, and she was white, and the protagonist was a white female detective in post-Katrina New Orleans, and it was heartbreaking. It was sort of this meditative, kind of Dirk Gently, kind of holistic approach to detective work, but it was within the context of Katrina, and it was kind of mind-blowing. And then the next book is Black Star in Nairobi, and it takes place during Obama's run for president in Kenya. So it's got, like, I'm learning all this stuff about Kenya and the political process and Africa and through like a detective novel. Like, it's fabulous. Many of these things, like these things, just sort of these books. My husband was like, "Oh, here, read this book," and then I found this book at a little library, and it's not like, here's a list of politically resonant, detective novels. They just are there. It's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's brilliant too that, of course, detective novels, it's all about who done it and what comes next. And I think those are themes that all of us have on our minds right now, as far as what is happening next. So the fact that they're so relevant to exactly what you're talking about, and relevant in a much broader sense is timely. So I'll get that little list from you, and I'll make sure that it goes up as part of the interview. So thank you so much, Melanee.
Yeah, it's all suspenseful. Yes, thank you, Josh. I really appreciate having this time to talk to you.
Yeah. All right. See you soon, buddy. Okay.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.